All right, so if you click the link, I'm sorry you're here. This is going to be a little bit slow, but I just wanted to introduce myself and the car, and a little bit about what I'm about, and a little bit about what I plan on doing to this lovely disaster here. So first things first, I in my lifetime I've actually owned 39 cars, all in various states of running and driving condition, anywhere from 1970s on up. I've actually never owned anything older than the 70s, but everything from Cushman Vancers to Miatas, 240s. There's an Exocet right here. Vet swap Mercedes, pickup trucks, you name it. I've kind of dabbled in it, and I grew up in the 90s. And in the 90s, I had a poster of a canary yellow, whatever the factory color was, a 240Z on my wall. I have loved these cars since I got into cars, and I've always just kind of had one in the back of my mind of what I wanted to do with one, and if I could find the right one. So the opportunity presented itself, and here we are. What we have is a 240Z. It's a 1972. As far as I can tell, it is mostly original, minus the awful paint job applied in the early 80s. Everything's number matching. It is a automatic car. Boo. But we're going to see what we can do about that. I'm just going to kind of walk you through what's going on with the car, its exact condition, how I pulled it out, a little bit of the history, everything that I know about it to this point in time. And I'm going to do my best to try and document kind of resuscitating this thing, bring it back to life, and see where it goes. So, that being said, let's see if we can do some walking through this. So the car was originally very nice blue, and at some point in the early 80s, it looked like it might have fallen victim to some hail damage or I don't know, some sort of damage, and I haven't quite figured out what it is. There's Bondo in a few spots on the car. Definitely had some body work done, and it was resprayed with absolutely zero prep. I mean, you talk about a Mako paint job. This had got to be it. Didn't even try and match the original color. Overspray on all the decals. Didn't even try and match through. You can see the original blue sticking through there. Open the doors up. There's actually just straight flaking paint right on the inside of the doors. It's not great. But what I do have here is probably 115,000 original miles, 98% complete, and aside from a few spots that these Datsuns were just kind of known to have, a really solid car, which is great for me because I'm fully capable of doing body work. I mostly loathe it. I'm a big mechanical guy. My cars end up primarily looking pretty ugly, but running really well. So just wanted to walk through and show off the condition that I acquired it in, kind of familiarize you guys with the car, talk a little bit about what my plans are with it, maybe take a little bit of input, see what you guys are thinking. As I mentioned before, it's showing 15,000 on the original dash. I've got paperwork that says that it's probably 115,000. It also looks like it's been off the road for a significant amount of time. The date code on the bat tires is 1986 or so. There are tubes in there. That's the only way that they're holding air. The fronts have been replaced more recently than that, but again, they don't have many miles on them. They're extremely dry rotted. To the best of my knowledge, the gentleman that I bought this car from said that it had been sitting for at least 20 plus years. It is a quote unquote barn car, barn find, I guess you would say. So we're going to go ahead and start at the front corner and just kind of make our way around the car, talk a little bit about the condition of the components and where we need to go. All of the sheet metal is very straight. I mentioned that there was some sort of accident is something that caused these guys to want to repaint the car, whoever owned it. I can't really find what had caused it. The body panels, granted the hood is open right now, but the seams all line up really well. The gaps are in good shape. The panels are straight. There's a very limited amount of rust for a Datsun 240, especially in New England. I found this car, it came out of Massachusetts, and I'm pretty amazed at how rust-free it is. I've been searching for one of these cars for a long time. The majority of them that I've seen, that I've gone to look at, that have been a relatively reasonable price, have been just Swiss cheese at this point. But fenders actually in pretty good shape, aside from, again, the paint. I'm just gonna make that be the last time that I say anything about it. I am gonna get it up in the air so we can look at the underbody here in a minute. But typical bubbling in the rocker panels, but really solid. A couple small patches that need to be addressed. Some small stuff like this in the door. Moving back to the dog legs, another notorious area. You see a lot of 240s with over fenders on there, and this is probably a good chunk of the reason why. I definitely, at this point in time, don't want to do over fenders. While I do dig the look, I really like the original lines of the car, so we'll see how it all pans out there. But really solid all the way through. This passenger side door latch definitely needs some work. Everything moves, everything's free, but it doesn't actually latch. It seems like something's disconnected. It seems like one of the latch rods or one of the detents internally is disconnected. You can see your typical 50-year-old car stuff, right? So door panel, pretty good shape. Components are all there. That's what I care about. Door handles there. Really limited amount of pitting in the finish on it. Windows crank up and down. Track pretty well. No gouge marks, no scratches. Definitely gonna have to remake or at least reupholster this door panel here. Moving on in, softest part of the car, of course, the floors. I haven't seen one of these cars original with floors that don't represent a bag of smashed Oreos. So I am going to have to do floor pans, both sides. Dash has got typical 240Z cracks in it. Nothing that can't be refinished. It's hasn't turned into a rock at this point. It's still soft, so I've got some faith that I should be able to refinish that. Again, original trim is all there. Headliner's there. Headliner's in great shape for a car that sat primarily outside. Really, no mold, no musty smell, no rat smell, no mouse smell. Some broken plastics and stuff like that, but probably going to clean up pretty well. That awful T-handle automatic shifter, definitely going to have to get rid of that. So moving on along back here, again, some more bubbling, a little bit of rust, peeling paint, that kind of stuff, but trim's there. That's what I care about. This really surprised me. Really clean filler neck. All the way, well, it's pretty dark in there, but all the way through, gas that's in there smells like it's straight paint thinner at this point. Luckily for us, there's a drain on the bottom of the tank. We're going to, later in life, drain that out, check out the interior shape of the tank, and see if it can be salvaged. If not, we'll probably try and locate a tank, and if we're not, we'll just go to a fuel cell. Again, harping on the original trim rings, original rubber bumper cover, as awful as it may be. Definitely going to have to lose the bumpers, because who the hell cares about bumpers? So, I mentioned the floors before. A couple other things to note. This car had louvers on it, and I'm really disappointed that the louvers aren't still on it, because I am one of those people that actually really appreciates louvers. Roof, again, kind of hard to see, but really straight. No dents, no dings, nothing that needs to be pulled. Typical bubbling, but again, solid. Something that can be smoothed. A little Pour 15, a little self-etching primer, and should Should clean up real nice. Now, unfortunately, somebody at some point decided to try and pull this car by the hatch latch. And in doing so, tore this whole support piece. Good news is I've looked and somebody out there is actually manufacturing these pieces primarily because they rust. They like to rust. I guess water just pools here and they rust, right? So pretty easy repair. Gonna have to cut it out, put a new one in, but this definitely bummed me out. Seller didn't tell me anything about it until I got there. Showed up, said, "Oh, the hatches popped," and didn't really think anything of it until I started investigating. And obviously not a deal breaker as the car's here, but just kind of an annoying bodywork thing that I don't really want to deal with. Have both of the original finish panels, some sweet stickers on there. It looks like we got here Heidelberg bumper sticker. Another reason I bought this car, aside from the sweet 7071 Datsun 240Z stickers, have a manual center console, which goes along with the 4-speed manual that I have acquired from the guy I bought it from. So his plan was 4-speed swap it, cruise around, love life, everything's dandy, right? Well, one thing led to another. He wanted to buy a house. Typical American dream story, selling off his projects. Here I am. But this is one of the things that absolutely sold me on the car, and something that confuses the hell out of me with regards to floor pans. Yeah, there's some nutshells in here. There's been some squirrels living in it, some whatever, right? But this trunk is super solid. A little bit of superficial surface rust. But this car was definitely well cared for. It was definitely stored in a good area. If it was stored on gravel out in the yard for 50 years or 30 years, however long it's been, it definitely wouldn't be in this kind of shape. All the wiring is still soft. It hasn't turned into that typical brick 70s, touch it and the loom falls off kind of stuff. All the lights work. The radio works. That's that classic Sony cassette player, if you can see it up there. But anyways, moving on. I'm trying to not drag this out too long, even though it can be a bit wordy. A little bit of attention needed to the seals. Really impressed that the gas strut still works. Always appreciated that there was no wiper on these cars. I think the SN just looks really clean without them. Again, some evidence of some poor pull jobs trying to get this thing out of there. 5 mile an hour safety rating was rated for impact to, not yanking from. Luckily for us, nobody tried to grab anything underneath. They probably would have ripped something straight off. Oh, they did, the exhaust. So as far as rust goes, aside from the floors, this is by far the worst spot. Again, another super common area for Japanese cars of this vintage. Nothing that can't be easily, cut, welded, tacked in, seamed, and be on our way. Driver's door, arguably in much better shape than the passengers. A little bit of a sticky hinge there. Definitely going to need some grease in there. The floor over here is mostly complete. It's not total Fred Flintstone floor like the passenger side is, but definitely needs some love. Definitely needs some attention. Can definitely see where someone was storing their nuts in here. Probably wasn't just a squirrel. Dash again. Yeah, actually. So it's a little bit dark in here. I'm going to try and do this. No idea what it's going to look like. It's a dash. Oh, sorry, it actually says 16436 on it. Gauges all work, everything like that. I'm, again, pretty impressed. Everything's here. Everything's original. Aside from that awful Sony, I don't know, 1980, 90, whatever. Actually, you know what? I could probably date the car based on that head unit if I could pull a part number or a copyright sticker off of it. So maybe we'll find out when we get that out of there. But all levers move. It sounds like stuff's moving in there. Obviously, I won't know until until I get further into it. Some of the light bulbs, obviously, don't work. So then I threw everything over here. You can see, you know, again, what I was talking about with the floors. The body, the frame is in pretty good shape. A couple of spots underneath it need to be addressed. Floor pans, definitely. But again, coming back to the nice spots on this car, paint is still in phenomenal shape. You know, this nice vinyl interior will probably clean up a little bit well. Personally, not a fan of the white. I think if I don't listen to my daughter, she might smother me in my sleep. So I think we're going green with like a tan interior on this. Maybe like a darker brown, something like that. But again, the automatic pedal box. I actually have a manual pedal box in that 4-speed that I was talking about, so that'll all get swapped out. Let's oh yeah. Doors closed super nice. Again, body lines all line up. Not worried about twisted frame or anything like that. I don't think that the panels on this thing would have the gaps that they do if there was any sort of damage like that. Here it's really obvious as to whatever the hell they did. You know, zero prep work, just sprayed right over it. You know, this is like someone in Grand Theft Auto was trying to get away from the cops and just pulled in, got a respray and carried on. So to this point, I have got it to crank over. It spins really freely. Actually, it sounds like it wants to fire. I haven't even touched the carbs. I just sprayed some starter fluid in there just to see if it would pop. Belts are obviously missing off the accessories, but as far as I can tell, everything looks complete. Got the wires off right now because I was messing with the spark plug, seeing how they fared. Oil is black, but it's super clean. No evidence of particulate contamination or you know, that metal confetti in there. I did have a good chuckle about the world's second largest oil filter when I popped this thing open, but yeah, I mean, you know, a ton of space, good solid shape, you know, strut towers, everything. A little bit of superficial surface rust again, but you know, nothing that can't be blasted with a flap wheel and sealed and carried on. Only rust in the hood is, again, typical areas here under that front lip where water just pooled and over the past 50 years has not been kind to it. I do have the front bumper. Again, not a big fan of them, so haven't yet determined what the course of action is. But let's get it in the air and take a look underneath. All right. A little bit of a rhododendron. Victim to me pulling it out of where I found it. So, starting up front, a couple of horns, all the original slats. Looks like we're missing one right in the middle there. You know, no big deal really. Again, all things that could clean up super well. A little bit of a leaky automatic transmission line, but who cares because it's automatic transmission and it's definitely going to be yanked right out of there. Struts have definitely seen better days. Again, you know, surface rust on all the components, but nothing that's actually starting to chug through. Steering rack is surprisingly not leaking. Boot is torn there, but you know, again, nothing that can't be easily addressed. Surprisingly, the only oil leak that I've found looks to be this rear pan gasket. You know, again, nothing serious, pretty impressive. Rubber is obviously completely shot. All the bushings need to be replaced. Things that I plan on doing anyways, but you know, are definitely going to be a priority at some point. All the accessories spin freely. That's kind of it for under here, right? It's a car. So, get into the floors. Both sides, right here, definitely need a little bit of a patch, but fairly easy spot to patch. You know, just cut it back up. Little piece of sheet metal, probably a 12 gauge, and we'll go from there. Floor pans. I'll do my best here to show this off between the lift. Again, driver's side, pretty good shape. You know, there's that hole, but mostly complete. Definitely good enough to get a template of and move through there. Passenger side, shot. I mean, it's just shot. So, a couple of floor pans, not a huge deal. But what I cared about was frame rails on both sides are in pretty good shape. You know, relatively speaking, again, 50-year-old car. Just going to keep repeating that. 48-year-old car, whatever, it's close enough. We'll round up a millennial. So while I'm walking by, I do have the wing mirror. It just popped off, and I didn't want to lose it, so I figured I'd secure it when I got back here. Moving around to the back of the car. A little bit crustier than the front, but nothing that a flap wheel won't clean up. Definitely gonna have to spend some time with some wire wheel and some port 15 and all the typical stuff. Depending on how crazy I want to go with this, I haven't yet determined what I want to do with it. Ultimately, just know that restoration is the goal. Probably an OEM plus type thing, but I do have some parts kicking around that could make this thing a lot of fun. So you can see exhaust fell off at some point. It looks like the tail shaft housing seal is leaking on the trans. Again, don't really care because it's automatic trans. It's getting pulled out. So floors crusty as usual, as suspected. But subframe components, rear diff, everything pretty solid. U-joints surprisingly tight. Brake lines in surprisingly good condition as well. Little bit of contamination there on the front, so probably just all get replaced anyways. But again, this speaks to the quality of wherever this car was stored. Gas tank, again, great shape for a 48-year-old gas tank in New England, especially in a time where undercoating was something that happened when you had bad Taco Bell. Moving along again. Hey, there's the dashboard. So it needs a passenger floor pan for sure. Pretty obvious, but that's what I care about. The frame stub rails, everything like that, pretty good shape. I am grabbing it by the pinch welds right now because I didn't know what was soft underneath here, and I didn't want to distort the floors at all before I had a chance to replace them. Same spot here as the other side. It looks like it might have been a seam seal that just got some water in it and started to rust. So blast that off and get to it. Brake lines actually look like they might have been replaced because that looks way too clean for as old as it's supposed to be. That's pretty much it. I'm pretty excited for this one. We got some design input from my 4.5-year-old that I have to keep in mind here. This has been a bucket list car for me, and number 39 at this point. So definitely going to be taking my time on this. Not really cutting any corners and making sure this one's done right. It's a car that when it came out kind of revolutionized the sports car market in America. If you look at this thing dimensionally, it's actually very similar to my Exocet, which by today's standard is a microscopic car on the road. So to have something like this come out 48 years ago and to be as wildly successful as it was against the Camaros and the Mustangs and all of the cars that were pushing 2 tons in this is a 2,300 pound car with a 2.4 liter straight six, and definitely I think changed people's perceptions of what a sports car could be. Speaking of that anemic 2.4, I have something a little bit bigger. It's freshly rebuilt, regasketed, LR4, 4.8 liter. I have a trans to go with it. Did some measurements, did a little bit of research. Turns out they fit mighty well inside the 240 with a different intake manifold and oil pan. So, haven't quite decided yet as to whether or not I want to keep the straight six and the classic feel and drive of the car, or if I want to do something just dumb with it and stuff this 4.8 in it. Knowing me, I'm probably going to do something dumb with it. So anyways, appreciate it. If you've made it this long, that's probably 20 minutes longer than anyone else has wanted to listen to me. So appreciate tuning in. I'm going to try and do some pretty regular updates on this. Like I said, I've never really been one to fully document my process on stuff. It's always been a couple pictures of, I think I built the whole Exocet and took 20 pictures of it. Maybe a video of ripping around in it when all was said and done. But I'm pretty excited for this one, and I think it's the kind of car that deserves something like this. There's my garage door strap guy thing. So thanks for tuning in. Comrade Gutoshka out.